everyone becomes rock stars and not everyone becomes actors, and it's a very LA story to not become a famous person.
My name is Matthew Weaver, and I am the producer of Rock of Ages.
I am Hillary Weaver, and I'm one of the original producers of Rock of Ages.
I'm Carl Levin. I'm one of the producers of Rock of Ages.
I'm Janet Billig, and I'm an original producer of Rock of Ages.
I am Scott Pryzan. I am one of the producers of Rock of Ages.
I'm Kristin Hanggi, and I'm the director of Rock of Ages.
I'm Chris Dorenzo. I wrote the book for Rock of Ages.
I was obsessed with 80s music. So I got together with a writer named Brian Yorkie, who later went on to create Next to Normal and win a Pulitzer and all the Tony Awards. And this was before Rock of Ages. We created a movie, a pitch about a girl who goes back in time in the 80s and winds up in high school with her mother, and they learn to become best friends as teenagers. It's a time travel movie, but everybody breaks out into 80s songs. And when I got together with Brian, I said, you know what, let's not just go in with you and I and pitch it. Let's create a theatrical pitch. So we hired singers and dancers and musicians. I spent about $25,000 on the pitch, and we rehearsed this pitch to take place in conference rooms at studios. And part of it was an old-fashioned pitch where the writer would pitch. So the girl meets the guy, and the guy meets the girl, and they're in love. And then he'd stop, and then we'd have two singers in the room sing "Oh l'Amour," or "Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic," or "We Got the Beat," or "Save It for Later" by whatever it was. We cast it out of the back of Backstage West, hired musicians. I had someone direct the pitch. We got a van, and we drove around to the studios. Whenever the pitch was over, goodbye, this was amazing, thank you. We would leave, get in our van, drive to the next studio. We had already placed an iPod, which were brand new, on each executive's desk with all the music from the pitch. So that we probably spent $5,000 on iPods. And it was amazing, and so sold that to Universal. But that is the original origins of rock, because again, that got me thinking of 80s music.
If he likes a song, or he'll just listen to it like 100 times in a row and somehow something comes out of it. We were going on a golfing trip to Mexico, and he bought like 10 CDs for the trip with all these couples. And we found out that the one CD we played over and over was Journey's Greatest Hits.
So I had it on the brain. Why theater? I wasn't sure, but I was like, oh, let's do this for theater. Cool.
I was like a serious thespian, all about the serious plays. I was doing a play at the Hudson, and we shared a wall with a production of Bear that Kristin Hanggi was directing.
I had always really been interested in rock musicals, and I'd done a considerable amount of straight theater, but the show that I did, Bear, was a rock musical. And I had done that about, I think I was about 22. And that kind of like swept the town a little bit. It was a rock musical, it was young kids, it was, you know, kind of concert lighting. And I got really interested then about what if we make our theater a little bit more like a concert?
They were both producing separate shows at the Hudson Theater Complex. Kristin was doing Bear, which went on to be this huge show. Hillary was doing a play with Mark Ruffalo. And Hillary was like, this play Bear is amazing, you gotta come see it.
And then I saw this musical that just blew my mind, and I just loved it so much. And I knew I had to get involved in musicals.
I had done a bunch of shows with Hillary, actually, and Hillary and I had done the Pussycat Dolls at the Roxy.
My husband, to get him to go to any of my productions was like pulling teeth. Cut to the Pussycat Dolls, he did not miss a single show.
And I really got interested into these like hybrid experiences where it's not just, you're not just at a theater, it's something that's a little bit more communal, it's a little bit more fun, where you don't feel all stuffy, but like you can feel like I'm at a happening, something's going on here, and this is cool, this is fun. Like I feel like I can like let loose. So that was kind of like a little seed that got planted, because Sunset Strip, Club on Sunset Strip, everyone inside the Roxy had a story. A rock club on the Sunset Strip is a really cool frame for something.
And he loved it so much that I think that was really the impetus of him getting this Rock of Ages musical for dudes off the ground.
And I got a phone call from Matt Weaver. And Matt said, hey, we think we can get the rights to some 80s music. Why don't you come in and meet with us? So I met with Matt Weaver and Carl Levin, and they told me that they had a collection of songs they were just passionate about. Don't Stop Believin' being one of them. That they felt there was a show here. There was a great show that wanted to be created with these anthems. Now, I had back in my head the time I had been at the Rock Club on the Sunset Strip and pitched them that concept. And they loved that. They thought that was a great framework. And then the next thing was, let's find a writer.
Kristin was already on the project with the producers. They were on the hunt for a writer, and we happened to have the same agent at the time. So I think because I was in a band, in a rock band, and also was a writer, and I had expressed interest in doing theater, he was like, well, this is a guy that you should meet.
In fact, he said the first time we met, call your producers, tell them you found the guy, because I'm it. And he was.
So they sent me like 4 mixed CDs of 80s metal and hard rock and stuff like that. And I had like an additional like 200 CDs at home that I like brought into the thing, because I'm like a bit of a music nerd, and this was, you know, right in my sweet spot of what I grew up with was this genre. So so then I just kind of drove around LA with the CDs and would just listen to them, and then had kind of an idea, and I was real excited because I felt like there was a great opportunity, because to me, what I get excited by are things that feel like they shouldn't work. And to me, this was like such a bad idea that it was a great idea. If we did it right, and I thought there was a way to do it right, we could do something really interesting. And in listening to the music and hearing the structure of those songs and the theatricality of that music, they felt like show tunes to me. I mean, I really early on saw the potential to, you know, deconstruct them in a way where you could tell a story.
We had our first meeting in like the winter of 2004.
Kristin and I met at a coffee shop, and I made her come out to my car with me and just sit in my car, and we'd listen to songs. And I was like, and this is what I think for this, and what do you think of this? And we clicked right away. I think there were a few other writers maybe still in the mix, because I remember I went to go pitch all the producers, and I saw a writer coming out as I was going in, and I knew, and you don't see that very often, like, you know, usually they're not back to back. So it felt more like an acting audition, and I got those kind of like actor butterflies, like, oh shit, I gotta actually, you know, audition for this. I'm not just pitching, I'm auditioning. So they were all in a conference room, and I don't know what possessed me, but I kicked the door open and I threw my bag in first, and then I made this entrance.
And literally does a one-man show at Rock of Ages in a conference room in our old office on Sunset Boulevard. And he walked through what the show is, and I think 70% of what Chris pitched us that day is what you see on Broadway.
And then they hired me, and then we just started working.
Any way you want it, that's the way you need it. Any way you want it.
We were in a bar, so you were sitting on the booths and on the floor, and the show kind of happened all around. I mean, it was mostly on one side, but we had dancers up on the bar and using like the fire escape and up on the walls, and we really used the environment in a way to say, like, this is the bar that this story is happening out of.
I felt very strongly that from a story standpoint and from a character standpoint, I wanted to create a story and create characters that felt organic, not just to this world that these songs are about, but also the type of songwriting that was used in these songs. So I wanted something that was like simple and true and honest, and not like, and I didn't want to like overreach creatively and do something on Mars. Like I knew what these songs were about. They were about people like kids partying and being in love.
So it set the tone, that first workshop, that right at the beginning we knew we were doing an experience kind of show, and that hybrid quality of being half concert, half theater was a big key to the vibe.
That story of like, you know, Lonnie kind of sums it up with like the dreams you come in with may not be the dreams you leave with, but they still rock. I mean, I felt that was a very honest examination of dreams.
Sometimes the dreams you come in with, well, they ain't the dreams you leave with. But hey, they still rock.
So in that first workshop, Chris played Lonnie. And we knew that we were only going to put on like 45 minutes of the show. So the idea was he was going to be one of those characters that talked to the audience and kind of took them through the story.
Come on, feel the noise. Girls, rock your boys. We get wild, wild, wild. Wild, wild, wild.
Lonnie was never created to be the narrator. And actually through that experience of Chris playing this character and talking to the audience is when we're like, oh, that works. This like kind of scuzzy, unreliable narrator is like super fun. And like Chris had vulgar things written on his shirt as Lonnie is wearing this wig and this cowboy hat. And
But he was doing things like this. He was going, well, at this point, I'm going to write this really great part to this song. And at this point, you know, he kind of, the areas we didn't have, he kind of connected the dots. And so from that point on, we knew that we were getting maybe 80% of the song rights cleared. So we knew that the songs that we got cleared, we could run with those scenes. And the songs we didn't, we were waiting, and maybe we'd have to pluck that song out and put in a new one. So that's kind of, it became fully realized, and we needed like 4 or 5 months to make that happen.
well, from King King to Vanguard, what we did is we finished writing the show, because King King wasn't even the whole show. So we finished writing the show, we said, okay, now we're gonna do it. And that's when we started like looking for that spine, that the beginning, middle, and end, and really kind of fleshing it out. We brought in Dan Finnerty to play Lonnie, who already has kind of a really wonderful way with an audience. And that's, Vanguard is really where we started trying to figure out the story.
So I did want to like make sure that every character in the show was linked by a common theme, which was a search for dreams and really kind of coming through some kind of realization by the end of the story that there's something more important to them than what they thought.
Everything was very kind of loosey-goosey at the Vanguard, and also a ton of fun. I mean, so as crazy as things were and kind of disorganized, we also had like 800 people coming in and loving the show and singing, and we knew we had something special. I think things got better when we went to the Bryn Mawr Studios because we owned it outright, so everything could live there. So now we could finally start getting better sound, and our light cues could get more interesting, and we could have better equipment, and we didn't have to strike the show every night.
I felt like, oh, this is a Broadway show immediately. And I said that to Kristen. Kristen was like, yeah, I'm with you. And like, so we always kind of would say this is a Broadway show, and everyone would laugh, and you know, it was kind of supposed to do something else.
And I thought it was a Vegas show at that point, you know? I just didn't have the foresight to think or know we could be on Broadway, although everyone around me was telling me.
After Bryn Mawr, we got a phone call. I got a phone call from Matt Weaver saying, hey, we're gonna go to Vegas, and we're gonna go in like 2 weeks. It was like literally like 2 or 3 weeks, and I got off the phone and I cried.
And we just did it, and we opened it up, and wrong hotel, rush production, and a $300,000 lesson that you gotta go to New York and become famous first before you make it in Vegas.
The show itself, like, it didn't quite know what it was yet, and it still wasn't completely formed. And as we learned, like, everything kind of has to go through New York in order to really become something. So after Vegas, we all kind of came down, and then there was just like silence. And like, we all talked about Rock of Ages, like, remember how much fun that was, but it seemed like it was dead. About a year passed, and I was running like the Silver Lake Reservoir, and I think Here I Go Again came on my iPod, and I was running, and I literally, like, a tear started like trickling down my cheek, and I started crying, and I was like, oh my goodness, I love that show so much. Like, something has to happen. Like, you can't love something this much. And I think it was only a couple days later that Matt Weaver called and said, okay, I think we may have another life.
And And then it went off-Broadway, and everyone, I think, was very nervous about that because we were told by so many people that New York audiences wouldn't like it. It's a very LA-centric show.
I always laugh and say that all of our LA productions had like the cast of thousands, because we're also kept being told by our producers, think Vegas, think Vegas, think Vegas. So we kept putting all these like dance numbers in, and it was really elaborate in that way. And something that happened, of course, when we went to New York that was helpful for the show is we had to scale down our cast. And in scaling down the cast, it actually got more focused. All of us had matured just enough that we were really ready. And I remember on working on that version with Chris, it was really exciting because things started to like come into play. And so as we brought in Beowulf Boritt, who did the set, and Jason Lyons, who did the lighting, Peter Helinski with the sound, and Greg Gale with the costumes, and Ethan Popp with the orchestrations, like, it all took on a life of its own. And then, interestingly enough, a choreographer named RJ Durrell had done all of our LA productions. And then RJ got Madonna. And I know, right? So he's going off to choreograph for Madonna, but then my girl Kelly Devine was available, and she just got done being the associate on Jersey Boys, which actually ended up being this wonderful blessing because she had just gone through the process of rolling out a big show. And then so when she came to our show, there was so much that she knew from being inside that process that was so valuable. We opened off Broadway. Audiences seemed to really like it. I knew something was up with my producers. I didn't know what was up, but one night I'm in the back of the theater with Matt Weaver and Scott Pryson, and they're like laughing. And they're like, they have this like little chuckle, this like celebratory thing is happening. And they said, we're taking the show to Broadway. Heart-fluttering, crazy scene stars, yes, all of that.
The transition from off-Broadway to Broadway was a relatively fast one. I don't think it was less than a year. It was like a few months.
Now we really know what needs to change, and some really fundamental things happened then, some changes that I think were awesome, like the Lonnie Drew scene, where Lonnie says to Drew, you know, what is it you really want?
Take responsibility. You want something? You can't just wish for it. No, so screw the ride. Time to make your own destiny. What's really gonna make you happy?
Like, that seems to be a lot earlier. And we moved it, and all of a sudden we're like, oh, that's the scene. That's the scene where he realizes what's gonna make him happy. That's the scene where Drew becomes a man. That's the scene of transformation.
The characters that were created are so real and lovable. You have to root for somebody. And in this particular musical, I feel like you root for practically every person in their own way.
There are far more people that come out here to be famous that don't than do. And I also, you know, in my life as a writer and kind of being in the entertainment industry with other amazingly creative people, I had lots of friends who, you know, went into it thinking I'm going to be an actor, or I'm going to be a writer, or I'm going to be a director, and not for lack of talent, their path went a different way, and watching them become incredibly happy and seeing like what it was that made them happy, and I felt like that was a more interesting story to tell than everyone becomes famous.
What I remember more than anything is when the New York Times came, when Charles Isherwood came, and like being so scared and excited, and also watching the show kind of start to get its legs as we had these preview audiences, and watching us have some really great shows too as reviewers are coming in and starting to realize it worked, and that was really exciting. But once we got to opening night, it was like, I mean, like manifestation of dream time.
Living justifying emotion.
There I am, and I'm with Kelly. We're all dressed up. We're watching the show. Intermission. Hillary Weaver goes, girls, come on, and takes us into the stage manager office, and she goes, we got the New York Times review. And we're like, what? And she's like, it's a rave. And literally, just like tears, like, and to feel like he got it, like he got what we were trying to do. There's so much rejection that you do face. so that when the person that you need to say, you did it good, kids, like says that, I mean, it was incredible.
What's up, everyone? My name's Wolfgang Von Colt, and this one's for the ladies. 1, 2, 3. Come on, feel the noise. Say it, girls, come on.
We didn't know how tough it was. We didn't know 1 in 10 Broadway shows make money. But it's funny though, the world was falling apart. So you would think that would have deterred us alone. You would have thought the closing of Lehman Brothers and all the financial crisis, we would have said, let's wait guys, this isn't a good time. But again, I think the fact of what was going on in the world worked for us.
All of us who are these like, you know, kids who believe in something and keep working on our dreams, and we get knocked and knocked and knocked, but like that thing that keeps pulling you on. And I think that that's what, in a way, we as a country and as people needed to feel like the time was going to turn and things were going to be okay. And like, I really just feel like we were lucky to get to bring that message to people and like get to watch people have a really great time.